and a lot of the kind of existential struggles as well. But today, I would like to discuss something that goes a bit in the past with me. It's kind of my first few years of experience at Neste. I've been with the company about 6.5 years now, and I started as a data scientist and a product owner, and it's kind of those experiences there, applying agile analytics to data science and trying to create this backbone for a successful and transparent analytics product roadmap. So that's kind of a mouthful, but you'll see later on what I'm getting at. Bit of expectation management. So what you will get from this, if you look at the different personas, it might be that you don't see any use for Agile in analytics, and you will be probably terribly annoyed by what I'm about to say. But let me still try to tell you at least a good war story or two. Then again, you might be running successfully a scaled Agile framework, data science included, and you kind of think that, okay, this topic is so 2013, so what is the relevance? Hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So you might be kind of running everything smooth and operating smooth, and then I'm happy for you. Might be still relevant to check some of the values that I prescribe later on in the presentation. And also a challenge that I would throw at your way is when was the last time that you actually sneaked in and attended a team's retrospective planning or stakeholder goal session? Then you might be just starting out to apply Agile in the data science or analytics teams and struggle with maybe transparency of the roadmap and the communication with the stakeholder, and it all kind of stresses you out. And for you, I hope that at least I have something to consider kind of as the solution for these problems, and then maybe at least avoid some bumps on your forehead. I kind of have a product owner's viewpoint from this, so I won't go kind of try to address all of the different things and viewpoints that go into Agile and applying that. It's a immense topic, but kind of take it it as a thing that is viewed from the product owner's perspective. So maybe the first question is, so Agile, that's what you're supposed to do, right? So in data science, why would you do Agile, and what is kind of the point? Well, data science is a scientific discipline, and then by definition and by nature, the results of the data science process are kind of uncertain. You don't exactly know what you're going to end up in the modeling process. The data might not pan out. The model might not work as well as you expected, or even worse, you are answering the wrong question. And I think at least what John there said, that might be a fantastic example of it. And I think that there are many things like this that we run into much more than the data not corresponding to our needs or the models being incorrect. Then obviously incremental deliverables work fantastically with data science and analytics. So once you get kind of incremental results to the stakeholders, they are much more better able to understand what this data science is actually even proving out to be, what is its kind of impact, how you can leverage that. And that's one of the benefits. And then obviously as well, you have kind of multiple frameworks for scaling the data science, machine learning, AI, whatever hype work you're addressing with the Agile approach. So that is something also that's supposed to help you. Then if we just review kind of quickly also different flavors of addressing the challenge. So what might be some of the common ones that that kind of exist in the space of Agile and in the space of governing data science and governing the development phases of it. So you might have something like SAFe, so the Scaled Agile Framework. That is there, definitely. Then you might be doing something that the Spotify didn't do, but was kind of thought out that they did. There is a link in there. Go check it out if you don't know the full story. But definitely, I do see the value in the described approach. So it doesn't. By no means, I'm not saying that the approach there is kind of invalid. But anyways, and then also one of the questions is, we're supposed to have the data management office, right? So this Agile and all of these things, that's really cool and nice, but surely we have kind of a data management agenda here, and surely that takes into account the data science and analytics as well. So how about that in terms of addressing the development governance and also the goal orientation of the data science and analytics? So all of those are fantastic points, and all of those are different viewpoints to the problem. Then let's still look at what's actually been written about data science and Agile. A couple of sources pop into mind. I noted them here. You can also find them in my LinkedIn posts if you want kind of fast access for the URLs, and if you're unfamiliar with them. A couple of other sources have been now popping up in terms of forums and places like Medium and so forth. So it's a little bit more popular, but not much has been written about the topic, I think. So moving on to the actual beef of the matter and keeping that what I presented there in the back of our minds for this story. So let's roll back to 2017 and look at the kind of the situation and the case where I was in. So I had the background of education as a economist, then turned as a researcher, then turned into a product owner / analyst, and then started out at Neste as a data scientist and moved into the product owner of the data science platform for a particular business unit. And when we started out our data science platform development, it was 2017, and our data sources were kind of in the legacy data warehouses, and it was really difficult time in terms of you had all of the typical problems of starting out a new data science activity and initiative in terms of accessing to the data, in terms of stakeholder level of maturity being low, all of these things. And that also meant that we had a little bit of problem of pinpointing really the relevant cases, which I think makes all of the difference. So if you're solving the incorrect problems, that's, I think, the worst possible thing to have, because however your fancy your model or however good your model is, if you have the wrong question, then you are really in a bad place. But at the time, we had a few crucial people with correct backgrounds in the team that we got. So essentially, it was in-house team mixed with the vendor side as well. So we needed some. So we knew that we needed some senior muscle there in terms of backend development and things like that. And we were extremely happy to have the correct people in the correct places. Before moving on to the kind of the things that I would highlight from the Agile that really makes matter in terms of data science, especially from a product owner's point of view, maybe kind of my justification to say why this works is that when we started out with the initial release of the platform, and this was in February of 2017, and we had started just in January in 2017 the actual development. We had essentially 5 use cases, and it wasn't a lot, but at the same time I knew that we really need to just start also somewhere, and if you are not able to describe the cases or the goals of the cases in a better way or in a good way, it's good to at least start somewhere and start with kind of confidence and then track down the actual goals. We expanded the platform, and we also managed to track down the actual goals that were kind of bothering the different teams in the business units that or had kind of the value promise in terms of analytics. And already later on in 2017, we had 5 major avenues in analytics. And what I mean by 5 major avenues, I essentially mean themes like, okay, there is this marketing automation track that we need to address with analytics. There is the kind of the sales analytics that we need to track, or the pricing and so forth. So I think that was kind of one of the successful things to note in terms of how we approach the problem, or what we accounted for in the manner that we did in terms of agile things that we applied. And later on in 2018, the production models were in the hundreds. Obviously, having a lot of production models doesn't really mean that much necessarily in terms of success, but at least it gives you kind of a scope. And at least I view we got a good start in terms of looking at where we started out and the initial place. Then I have these couple of main findings here, and I'm going to use this kind of a diagram to talk you through this. So essentially, this describes the basic flow that we had in the agile development, what we were doing with the data science team. So we had the product backlog in the left, that refines to a sprint backlog. We do the sprint. We have the demo for the end users and the stakeholders. We do a retrospective, obviously, to improve the team's efforts. We initiate planning, and that goes back to product backlog. But the couple of the different things that I highlighted here or drew that you don't usually see in these types of diagrams, you usually see a small little circle on the product backlog upper left side that says refinement. And I think that's a very crucial point, because that is actually the place where the vision for the analytics product that you're now trying to deliver is being created. And if that is only usually described with a small kind of a circle and kind of this process that you do ongoing refinement, well, cool story, bro, but what does actually happen in the refinement? What makes it a successful refinement? How do you maintain the vision? Are there some common patterns or some anti-patterns to what should be done there in terms of product owner's viewpoint? And I try to talk about them, and I think that those are the kind of the key findings that I have. And also definitely at least the things that made kind of our case successful. So backlog refinement. I think that you definitely should always engage the stakeholders or the end users closely, and you should obviously in a quite kind of in a very accurate way hear what they are saying. Try to really learn the domain of what they are, where they are working at. But it isn't only about implementing what they said. if the product owner's role is really about just going from a meeting to a meeting with the stakeholders, writing down what they want, and putting that in a Jira or Monday.com or whatever ticket system you're using to that backlog, then I think you're selling your talents or your skills short. Don't just shift responsibility. Be accountable for what is in the product backlog. I think we quite often forgot kind of the basics of the description of the product owner. So it's supposed to be the one who has the vision for the product and maintains the vision for the product, and has some mandate also to do that. So obviously it's kind of a service-oriented mindset. You're there for everybody else, not yourself, but it's the product that you're trying to develop, not kind of just to reiterate necessarily what somebody else is saying. And this should constitute the majority of your workload, I think. And like I said, don't forget to have your input. That's the main message there. And it's also a balancing act then that, okay, you're supposed to have a vision, but don't forget to consult other people either, especially in the data science space where the product gets more complex, more refined. You don't necessarily understand how the product builds together. Consult other people, consult your team. You have definitely experts there that are able to help you. And also finally, for the backlog refinement part, you should be aligned with the data strategy. So your goals should be aligned. Make sure that they are, that you're actually delivering on the data vision and data strategy promise. And that's also the way to, I think, to tie this with the data management office. If you're familiar with the construct of the data management office, then you're kind of aligning yourself as a product owner to that as well. And then the second part of the kind of the refinement or the product backlog maintenance thing. And this touched upon on one of the things that I mentioned in the intro for the speak as well. So the funding. And this is the theme prioritization part, what I called theme prioritization part. And this usually appears in the other frameworks as well. So SAFe or whatever you're using addresses this somehow, but at least in our case, we didn't have scaled agile framework in use at the time. But I knew and we knew that we needed to have our input and have kind of the management's backing for this and have their say in this, have their feedback on this. That is this actually the kind of the end result that you want from this product that is supposed to address different things like pricing, email marketing automation, different types of analytics, whatnot. And what we did there is that essentially we had the agile increment, so a couple months of periods of time, and before the start of each increment, we presented the themes, development themes. So not the epics from the agile backlog, that's confusing to the owners, but the kind of the aggregate themes, the bigger development themes to the actual owners, the ones that controlled the funding essentially, and made the decisions about where to take the roadmap for the product in the longer term. So we described those and made sure that they understood the draft roadmap that we were presenting for the next couple of months ahead. And then in a meeting, essentially, it was a prioritization meeting, multiple owners there. Obviously, if you think about it from an agile perspective, could go wrong, right? You have multiple people with different types of viewpoints, but senior enough that they would have this discussion anyway. because they were the people that had their ownership there. They had the funding, as I said. And I think that this was really one of the keys there as well, because many times we were able to kind of present that, okay, we thought that in order, because we listened to you, what you wanted, we listened to the people that were working in your teams as well, the stakeholders. We listened to them, and they wanted these things, and we could come up with this product vision. This is kind of our draft. Does it look good? Do you want to drive this in another way? Do you want to put extra effort somewhere? Do you want to change the time slots for some of the things, or the order rather than time slots? And I think this was really one of the keys as well. And transparency here was one of the critical things. So summing up, key takeaways. Be about people and interactions. As a product owner, interact with your team, interact with your stakeholders, and really try to understand them, why they are thinking in the way that they do. Might sound like a cliche, but I think this is kind of people and process first type of a thing. I have a quantitative background, but I have too many bumps from in my forehead by addressing a problem through a quantitative way in these types of things. So I try to now learn that, okay, people and the interactions matter more. I hope you two do, or I hope that you do too. Then be transparent and create transparency throughout the process. So like I said, for the upper part, the prioritization meeting, create transparency through creating the vision for the owners, having that draft there, and then making kind of the choices between different things of priorities transparent. To your team and to yourself, endorse accountability. So if you don't own vision for the product, then who does? Take ownership of it, be accountable for it. You have kind of the mandate to do decisions on it, execute that, but also always be accountable for those as well. Finally, for the analytics product owner, kind of maybe a cliche as well, but I think this quote fits so well that I had to include it. It's kind of this thing that I could go to the data science team and talk about different types of product and different type of modeling approaches, hyperparameter stuff, whatever, all day long, and it would be nice and neat. But as a product owner, that's not necessarily your role there. It's more of a draw and paint that picture of where we are going with the product, what we are trying to implement, who has what kind of pain from the stakeholders or from the end users, or what is there to gain by addressing a problem, and really get them to work for your problem, solve your or the stakeholders' problem, and be a part of the kind of solving that, not only through technical means, but ideating through the solutions as well. So that's essentially me, just a little bit of time left. So with that, I'll be happy to take any questions.
So thanks a lot, Sami, for the presentation. I see a question here, 250. So yes, that's from Lucia. I'm curious, how long do your sprints last? Do data science sprints need to be longer than the typical 2 weeks long sprints that you often see in agile development, in your opinion?
Yeah. Thank you for the question. I would like to use 1 week sprints. We use 2 week sprints for most of the time. It little bit depends on how long is team there for. If it's a longer duration and the implementable items are huge, but I wouldn't go in any case longer than 2 weeks. And I think that you can quite quickly even fail in doing so. So prefer 1 week where possible, if need be, extend to.
Thanks a lot. I just want to, we have still 4 minutes exactly. Atle, can you possibly join us to see what was your opinion? Atle. Yes, Atle, now you have, yeah, perfect. So what was your feedback there? You were typing something to hear that.
Yeah, just have an opinion on the length of the sprint, on the sprints. Because in my experience, that the shorter sprint you have, the better it is. Because the longer sprints you have, you can walk in the wrong direction. Especially with data science, where you have, it's a lot of try and errors. And if you try one approach too long, you just waste time. You need to talk and check in.
Yeah, and that's I would 100% agree with that as well. The only constraint that I've found that requires longer sprints is the velocity of your business development side or your business and stakeholder side. So if that side is, especially early on, if they are a little bit slow in terms of giving the feedback, in terms of interpreting the results, or in terms of providing maybe domain data knowledge, then that might kind of give you basis that, okay, let's do a 2-week sprint. We can address maybe multiple angles during that sprint and kind of still get maybe the demo kind of rolling in a weekly manner. That's what we did when we had the 2-week sprints. We had the demo weekly anyways, although we had kind of the sprint ending in a 2 weeks time.
Thanks a lot.
Sami, a question for me here. So one of the things that we often see is that it's difficult for us to achieve synchronization with all the parts of the value chain that we depend on. It's very difficult for us to do things completely on our own. But as it often is with data science, there are no guarantees. So we may think we'll be able to do something within a sprint, and it turns out that we're absolutely not, and we require suddenly several more sprints. So what is your opinion? Is there some good pointers to how to achieve synchronization with other development teams?
And are you now thinking about in terms of other development teams, purely data science teams, or in other domains, or just maybe other teams?
Other domains, like if you take a front-end team that depends on your the output of your models to implement into the front end, for instance.
Yeah. I don't have a good and elegant answer that I would be kind of comfortable with in terms of addressing the problem. What I can say is that at least the only thing that we've addressed it with is more understanding and more communication in terms of, and also in some of the cases, we've also done kind of teams of teams approaches. So you are syncing together with the essential teams that are in the value chain, intermediate value chain, and that you mentioned, and syncing together more closely with them. But this is obviously kind of the scaled problem, right? Because so if you have multiple chains, and however bigger the problem is, it's kind of everybody's there at the end of the day, if you kind of look at it from a too big of a picture.
Thanks a lot. Thank you so much, Sami. Thanks, Jon. Thanks everybody for getting engaged. Sami, you can just stop sharing. Thanks a lot.
Yep. Thanks.